Okay. Was a way to have virtual care. And we've actually been doing this for 2+ years, if not even more. So this is actually not new, and it's been really nice to actually see it rolled out full force. Um, and I think it's actually really, really great in a lot of ways. I will spare you just all the reasons because there were like 15 slides going through why this is awesome, but you probably can guess all the reasons. It's great to see your patients sometimes. You can see their living conditions. Sometimes you got to do a physical exam. It's actually really, really great, and particularly, obviously, during a pandemic. During the session, we're going to do a couple things. I want you to be able to identify and access VVC appointments, utilize this acronym CAPS lock. I'll talk more about that. How to document the encounter, and then create these on-demand visits. Pre-visit planning, you got to have a microphone, you got to have a webcam, you got to have internet. It's pretty self-explanatory. You don't actually have to have remote access when you're doing the visit, and I'll show you how to do it without remote access. You should be on Skype if you can. That's the way that urgent cares are getting scheduled in. So if the TLC schedules someone into your phone visits, because we are now calculating and seeing who has open visits for the day. And so TLC is going to actually route people into your personal clinic if you have openings, just like they do in clinic normally. And I'm going to send you this PowerPoint slide, so no need to take notes or anything. This website is a great website to access some frequently asked questions, some just basic information. And then I want everyone to have the provider workflow out whenever you're doing your first couple visits. That is in the guide that I created. And I try to condense it to 2 pages of just the bare bones of everything you need to know. And it's specific to residents and includes things like how do you precept, what you should do, etc. So this document is very, very helpful. And I try to cut out all the fat and just leave the actual pertinent stuff. So have that out. Your clinic, how do you find it? It is just your clinic name plus VVC. So it is going to be SFC packed F7 VVC for me. There's a space between that. Hope's would be SFC packed B5 res A space VVC. Josh's would be res B space VVC. Pretty self-explanatory. You want to add this to your list teams. So if you want to know how to do this, you just go to tools options. So tools options, list teams, source combinations. And let's say you don't have that clinic in there. You're just going to click clinic SFC pack F7 VVC and just add it. You want to add all your clinics just like you would when you had your televisits added, because if you don't, you're not going to see them. But you also need to change this patient selection defaults to make sure that it's going to show everything. So combination, appointment date, and then I like to have a date range plus 45 so I can kind of see all the future visits. As you can imagine, this is also located in this document. So if you forget, you're like, oh man, how did Chris, he kind of went through that really quickly. I don't know how to do that. Adding all your clinics to your appointment list, page 5, click on this, it's right here. All right, so after this, definitely update your list so that you have all your clinics listed. So 2 ways to access your upcoming appointments. The first way is just to look at your email, and our process is to have the MSAs and LVNs, when they schedule you for a VVC, to put your UCSF email address in and not your VA email address. It is possible they still might put in your VA email address, but I sent them a spreadsheet of all of your UCSF email addresses and that you're VVC capable. And so hopefully they're going to follow that and put them all to your UCSF email. When you do that, you will get an email that looks just like this. It'll say VA Video Connect, or VA, appointment has been scheduled at this time. And all you got to do to join that appointment is just click on this link right here. So if you click on that link, it'll actually just pull up a screen. It's on my other window. So it'll pull this up, store, and it'll just pull up this gray screen. You put in your name, you press connect, you do start, and then you're in. That's it. It's 3 clicks. So you just got to click on the link. That's the way that we're hoping that we have this set up for visits when they're created by the MSAs and LVNs. So that's via the email notification. So again, you'll get an email that looks like this. Join the appointment, click on that link. That's it. You just press and type in your name, Dr. Schoenfeld, and then press defaults, and you're in. It'll just default to your laptop's camera or and the microphone. You can do a visit on your cell phone. You can do the visit from any single modality that has a camera and a microphone. That's all you need: camera, microphone, and internet. In fact, I recommend that people not do the visit through the VPN because it's just going to run incredibly slow. So when you're pulling up your UCSF email, you should just pull it up in like your normal email modality, whether it's, you know, on the web or whether you use like Apple Mail or whatever your email client is. Just use it and then connect it directly through your actual internet. Don't go through the VPN.
Chris, are we getting this email when the appointment is scheduled? Or
Yeah. Yeah, so it's exactly. So you have to dig it up, and that's a perfect segue for the other modality, which is the virtual care manager, which I actually like a lot more. Yeah, Claire.
When we get those emails about the appointments, have people actually been able to read them, or are they coming in as a secure message? And then, like,
Nope.
I feel like a lot of times when I get emails from my PAC team, it doesn't actually work.
Yes, this one does. It'll just, yeah, it's actually not secure.
Cool.
It's just a normal link. Yeah, I can show you on my own laptop. It's pretty cool. You can
It's okay, I trust you.
But yeah, it's not secure. It's just a normal link. It's a good question though. So the second way is this thing called the virtual care manager. And I'm going to pull it up just so we can see it. So this is my CPRS. Tools, specialty applications, VVC. And then it's going to pull up this window. And come on. And you'll want to say launch in browser. So it'll pull this up. And then it'll pull up this kind of standard PIV click website. For the vast majority of people, this is the reason why I've wanted people to get PIV cards, because for some reason it's been really buggy if you don't have a PIV card to get through that screen. So that's when you would plug in your PIV card reader, put in your card, press the button, and then press OK. It'll bring you to this next window where it'll auto-populate San Francisco. Give it a second. It'll also populate this San Francisco, and you press continue. And now you're in this modality called the virtual care manager. So I just made myself a visit, and I can change the date range to show whatever date range of visits I want. So let's say I want to know, like, who was I seeing in the last week? So if I change it to the 31st to the 7th, then I have all these visits. If I just want to see today, because I'm like, oh, you know what, I don't want to be confused about which links to push, change the date range, refresh, and I made myself a link for today. And that, if I click on this, it'll pop up. It's for this patient, Christopher Shaw at ucsf.edu. And if you're patient, if there's like, actually, I don't know where that email is, or I don't know where it is, you can resend that notification note. So once you're in the virtual care manager, all you do is just click on this link and then click start visit. Yes. And it'll take you to that same window. So you're back to this thing again. I type in Dr. Shaw, connect, defaults. And just so you know, this is saying none and for both of these because I'm using the camera and the microphone for Zoom, so it can't use it for both. But for you, it'll say default, and it'll just turn on your camera and your microphone. So now I'm in again, same thing. All right. So that's the other way of getting to this visit, which is the virtual care manager. Just to go through the slides, the patients are listed on the left, date range up here, resending a notification, and that's the virtual care manager. And again, all of this stuff is in here. So if you're wondering like, oh man, I totally forget like where the virtual care manager is, or how do I get to that, or whatever it is, just go to VA Video Connect Provider Workflow, and it's all here. Questions so far?
So I can log in there using remote access because my like card thing got stolen off my porch, so I don't have one.
Oh, no.
I can log in.
I have two.
You have two? Ooh.
Yeah, you want one.
You can try using this view other sign-in options and do this.
Yeah.
For example, I can get through, and I don't really know why I can do it, but a lot of people can't, and I don't really know. But I have found the most consistent way to do it is to do the PIV. All right.
If you've been able to do secure messaging
Mhm.
without your PIV,
It should work.
is that usually the same pattern?
That's probably true. I think that's probably right.
Okay.
But report back to me. I'm actually like dying to know, because, and some people are like, yeah, I didn't have a card reader, it worked, and some people are like, yeah, I have a card reader, I have a PIV exemption, it didn't work. Like it's not consistently happening.
Okay.
And so one thing I would try. So this first page that on the virtual care guide is remote access at the VA. The VA put together, I didn't have functioning remote access. I tried to be on the line with the enterprise service desk and was on the phone forever. They didn't call me for 4 days. Instead, I went to this website, and this actually, they created this for COVID because they were getting so many calls. It is actually a very good website. So if you have a moment, you can go to Mac OS. It'll have specifically using your PIV card. It'll work you through these links are updated. The downloads are updated. So this is actually a very good website that eventually it helped me be able to log in through remote access. So that, maybe give that a try. Okay. So conducting an actual visit. So caps lock. So you're in the virtual room. Caps lock is a way to think about the 5 steps that you need to take to start the visit. So consent, address, phone number, surveying the environment, and then locking the room. And you want to go through these couple things. So consent. So you want to ask them, today we're going to do a video visit instead of in person. I think we can probably address most of your stuff that you want to talk about. If we can't, we'll make sure that there's a way for you to get seen in person. Do you agree to this arrangement? They'll say yes, and that is enough. So verbal consent's good enough. You want to check their address and their phone number. And the way that you do that is actually in this modality. And again, like pretend I'm the patient. You're going to click on this 3-bar thing right here, and it'll say E911. And it'll actually auto-populate the address that your patient just put in. So I just typed that into my personal computer. That is where I am right now. And you can say, oh, right, where are you? What's your phone number? Where can you get access? Where can we access you if you have an issue? And they update all that information. So that's consent, address, phone numbers. And the last thing is you want to just survey the room to make sure that they're in a safe place. It's not public. If it is public, you want to just check, hey, it looks like you're in a coffee shop. Are you okay doing this visit? So, right now, hopefully it looks relatively safe. Nothing much around me. And I think you can proceed. And given that, the last thing you'll do is lock the visit. So in this 3-dot thing, that's where the E911 thing is. You want to lock the conference. Locking the conference is actually really important because if you don't lock it, anyone who has either the patient link or the provider link can come into the room. So it's actually great in a lot of ways. You could have the patient send that to their son or their daughter or their wife or whatever it is. Or I could send that link to mental health, to the pulmonologist, and do like a group visit so that everyone can sort of chime in on what's going on with the patient's care. However, as soon as you lock the room, no one can enter the visit anymore. So you always want to do all 5 of those steps. So again, consent, address, phone numbers, surveying the room, and locking the room. Questions about those sort of 5 steps when we start the visit? Okay, so we're in the visit. Be mindful of your web manner, your netiquette. So most of us have pretty good netiquette. Yeah, I think so. So key things, these are the things you already know intuitively. It's like, don't be in a super dark place that's creepy and weird. Don't be Josh. Josh is very creepy right now. No one wants to just see like puckered lips when they're talking to their provider. So I'm not going to belabor this point, but just like be aware of what you look like. Similarly, like I put on put on clothing that doesn't look like you're in your pajamas. But I think that's a pretty broad set of
Wrap yourself
options.
in a blanket.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's a cape.
The other thing, when we're not in a pandemic, the thing to know is that when you prescribe controlled substances, you do need to see people inpatient. I think in person, I mean, in this setting, if you have a patient who just broke their arm, was at Sutter, and they gave him 10 oxycodone, and ortho at the VA can't see them for a week, I think it's 100% reasonable in the setting of a pandemic to do a VVC and send them a week's of oxycodone. So I think this is an important thing to realize, but it's not the be all end all in our current pandemic state. Okay, so visiting after the visit or during the visit, ideally, how are you charting? So this is the note title, MP VVC provider note that you want to add to the note titles. And just so you know how to do that, you go to Tools, Options, Notes, Document Titles. And this is where you would do that thing where you do where you search for the note. Once you find it, you shift it over. So if that was, since I moved it, I'm going to add it over, and then it'll pop up. And you can move these around. These days, I like to have it very high at the top because it's something that I'm doing pretty frequently. Press OK, OK, and it's there. Now, what do you do when you actually need to write the note? So a couple key things. This guide has two notes that seem like they're very boring and probably not worth reading. Very, very important. So how do I do my encounter when the way I did the visit does not match the type of visit they were scheduled for? Meaning they're scheduled for a face-to-face and you do a telephone visit. You have a problem and you should read that page. If they do a telephone, if you're scheduled for a telephone and you actually end up doing a VVC, you got to read that page. If they're scheduled for a televisit and you call them on the telephone, you're good to go. You don't need to do anything, and you should just read this page, how to fill out a tele-encounter. This one, which says, how do I do my encounter when the way I did the visit does not match the type of visit they were scheduled for? You essentially need to make a new encounter for that visit. So let's say I was scheduled for a televisit, but I did a VVC with this patient. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to do a new visit. It's going to automatically default to what they were scheduled for, which is wrong. I'm going to do F7, VVC. It's going to pop it up, and I'm not going to mark this as historical. I'm going to leave it as an actual visit. Okay, new note. I'm going to do this note title. Okay, and it'll pull up a menu. This is your CAP. So consent, address, phone number. So this has the consent here, has the address, and then you want to confirm the phone number. After you've done those things, you can press OK, and it'll auto-populate that information right here. After that, my flow has been to just basically leave. You definitely want to leave it there, and then just add on your normal template afterwards, and then you can just start charting like normal. So a lot of the CAP is there, so you don't actually have to memorize all that stuff. Consent, address, phone number, surveying the room, and then locking the room. And this is how you add the note titles. Questions?
Chris, does that mean we can't pre-chart in the VVC note template because we have to do that confirmation thing first, or?
Which confirmation thing?
Like the whole, when you brought up the note, it was like we confirmed there.
I think it's okay. I think as long as you remember to do it. I think if you can just click, like right now, if I was seeing this guy tomorrow, I would just do this just like this. And then tomorrow when I talk to him, do the consent, confirm that this is right. If it's not right, just change it. You know, you can do like, you know, this is as editable as anything. And then you can just change that stuff and then do your note as normal.
Cool.
But yeah, you can pre-chart and just make sure that, like all pre-rounding, always change the date to the actual date. So today, now, and then you can sign your note. Good question. So this is the last part of the talk. So on demand, let's go back to that VVC modality. So the virtual care manager. So we're back in the virtual care manager. This is, remember I showed you how to find your visit and start your visit. I also showed you how to resend the notification to your patient if they don't have the link. But let's say you want to do the thing that I did with my patient around the weird enormous wart on his finger. I want to create a visit on the spot. So I'm on the phone with him. I'm like, do you have a camera? Do you have a microphone? Do you have internet? He's like, yeah, I do. Great. So I want someone. I don't know what's going on out there. I'm going to ask, why don't we do, who has like a device in front of you with your email?
All of us.
All of us? Great. That was a dumb question. All right. So Josh, what I want you to do is when I say go, you're going to start timing. All right. So I'm going to press create and you start your timer. And then when you get the link in your email, you tell me that you got it and stop your timer. So I just created it. So let's say Josh, I want to just make sure that, you know, he's doing all right. I'm worried about his, I don't know, whatever it might be, insert thing that we're worried about. Josh should get that message. And as soon as he gets it, he can click on it. The best would be is if you have two devices. Do you have a laptop and a phone or anything, Josh?
Yeah, I got it.
Great. What was the time?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So click on whatever you're not using for Zoom, use that device to log in. So like if you're, use your phone or whatever. Oh, and you might actually have to download the software.
Don't tell me about that.
While Josh is navigating, getting into
download the app.
Yeah. So download the app quickly.
It's taking more than 30 seconds now.
I know. So I kind of flew through that, but just to make sure that people understand. So click on this button, create unenrolled video visit. It auto-populates to that day. It'll actually auto-populate to the time when you click on this, but you got to just confirm the time. I usually change this to like 30 or 60 minutes. Put in your email address and then the veteran's email address. And many people have their email address here in the demographics. They often don't, but most people do have an email address and you just ask them. So my patient I saw with the weird nodule on his finger didn't have an email address listed. I just asked him and I just put it in and he got the link. So JDog, my patient JDog is here. I'll say, hey, JDog, what's your address? And he'll say, hey, I already put that in. It's 1288 4th Ave, San Francisco, California. What's your phone number? That's your phone number. And then what's the last thing I'm going to do?
Well, one, you didn't
Check
ask
the
for my
user.
consent,
Oh,
Christopher.
you're right. I didn't. I apps locked you. So, Mr. Schoenfeld, we're going to do our visit by video. Do you consent to this visit?
First of all, I'm a doctor. And
Sorry.
yes, you have my consent.
Great. So I confirm the address, the phone, and then I can lock the visit. So now per Claire's question, no one can get in anymore. Our visit is good to go. Okay. So I'm going to close this because I want to leave. There we go. So the next thing that I want you guys to do in the next week, ideally in the next couple of days, if possible, is I want you to get everything working. And I'm going to know that you have everything working because you are going to send me a invitation for a visit. And I'm going to check you off in my master spreadsheets of who has done it. So many people have done it. There are some delinquents, and I just emailed many of them last week, and they are hopefully going to give it to me. So I hope to say yes next to your names in the next week. Questions about troubleshooting? Let's see. Oh, this is the last thing, just that you can use, the VA has condoned the use of Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger, and Google Hangouts as alternate ways to reach people by video. My personal take on that is that most of those modalities, other than Zoom, if you use them, they're going to have a way to contact you in a way that I personally am not that supportive of. Ultimately, you get to make your own decisions as grown-ups, but I don't suggest people do that. And I think most visits, you can just do it by phone if you're having that much of a problem. And that's the other thing. If you're spending more than 4 to 5 minutes trying to troubleshoot, and I would suggest try to spend like 3 to 4 minutes, at least in your first couple visits, to like troubleshoot and figure out how to make it to work. If you're spending more than that, just call them and say, hey, sorry, this is not working. We're just going to do a video visit. I mean, a telephone visit. Okay. I am available today and just all the time, actually. So if you have questions, definitely let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions about VVC.